Okay, so this video we're now going to take a look at the difference between the merocrine glands, apocrine glands, and the holocrine glands. Now, all three of these glands are types of exocrine glands, and they're classified based upon how they secrete their substance. So, taking a look here at the merocrine glands, and of course these are all epithelial cells. Just to be clear, all glands are made of epithelial cells. So all these are made up of, so these little epithelial cells are here. And so we have one group here for the apocrine glands as well. Let's take just like 4 of them. All right. And so again, these are the glands that are a part of a bigger cell. These are the cells that are a part of a bigger gland. And so if we want to think about this here, each cell has different parts to it. Of course, you have the plasma membrane, you have you have all these different parts that are going on inside of each individual cell. So this cell has a different part A and part B. This cell has a part A and a part B. That's kind of what I'm drawing here. These are not different cells. This is all one cell here. And you have one part of A does something and B does something, So you have different parts of the cell for these epithelial cells. And for each one of these glands, merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine, they're doing something different. Something happens differently when that gland secretes its substance out into the body because the body needs it. Okay? So if we take the merocrine gland, this gland will start to secrete its, whatever it is. Let's say, it's secreting this little stuff that's coming out. And the epithelial cells themselves that are a part of the gland will stay there. They will not be damaged. They will not die. This gland will just secrete its substances, and that's it. Now, an example of a merocrine gland would be the salivary gland. The salivary gland is an example of a merocrine gland. It just secretes the saliva, and those epithelial cells just stay in place. Nothing happens to them. Each part. So this part of the cell stays there, B stays there, nothing happens. It just secretes the saliva and just does its job. The apocrine gland, for this one, what happens is it will secrete, but when it secretes, this part A of the cell will die off and go away inside of the secretion. So this part of the cell will die off and be mixed inside of whatever. So this little circle here is what it's secreting. Let's say sweat, for example. As an example, apocrine glands, an example would be sweat glands. Which means that inside of our sweat are pieces of epithelial cells. This is the point here. Because apocrine glands secrete, and when whatever it secrete comes off of it, a piece of a dead cell is mixed inside the substance that it's secreting. Meaning, when we sweat, some of pieces of this epithelial cells, like part A of this epithelial cell, is mixed inside the sweat. And now the good way to remember this is apocrine means, it kind of sounds like a part. So apocrine means a part of the cell. So that's the second type here. Then you have the holocrine cells. The holocrine cells, what happens here when this cell, when these epithelial cells here, for these type of glands, and remember, there's other examples. It's not just sweat glands only. There's other examples. It's not just salivary glands for these other ones here. It's other examples as well. I'm just giving you one here just to kind of give you something to remember. Now, for the holocrine cells, when that substance secretes its substance off, the whole cell, holocrine, that's where it comes from, all. The holocrine cell, when that substance those little bubbles are sort of bubbling off and that substance is going off somewhere, both parts, A and B, meaning the whole cell, is mixed inside of that mucus. An example of this will be the sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands, which secrete a substance on our hair. That's what these glands do. And and it secretes the substance called sebum, by the way. And when that substance secretes this sebum here, this substance contains the whole epithelial cell mixed inside of that mucus. Now, for the apocrine cell, it only contains a little part of it, like the sweat glands. Our sweat only has a little part of the epithelial cell, not the whole thing. But the holocrine, it includes the whole thing mixed inside of the mucus, and new cells come up, and it just keeps going and does its job.